People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Our dad had directed a film called The Wicker Man. But to me, it was always the film that f***ed up my family.
This is the letter we got, 2021. I have in my possession a very large quantity of personal papers which I believe were originally belonging to Robin Hardy.
Robin Hardy.
Robin Hardy.
Robin Hardy.
Mr. Robin Hardy, who is the creator of The Wicker Man.
He just didn't understand how films were made.
Every time I arrived on location, there was some drama.
Anarchy was in the air, and nobody really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, Robin.
How come he never made any money from this film? How come he got cut out? What deal did he sign?
He was clearly going bankrupt throughout this whole process.
Robin Hardy abandons his family, abandons his house. Just one day he's gone.
This f***ing film has been responsible for so much damage. I don't frankly know if I can carry on with this. It's dredging up too much bad juju.
Somehow or other, though, we've been brought together to do this by this film.
Do you think that making a film about one's father is a stupid thing to do?
Stupid, no. Challenging, yes.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I am talking with Justin Hardy. He is the director of the new film, Children of the Wicker Man. He and his brother, Dominic, are the creators of this documentary, all about their father and all about the making of the film Wicker Man way back in 1973. Had a great time talking with Mr. Hardy. He was in a cafe at the time. I'm hoping that through the magic of AI, I might be able to dampen some of those sounds. Otherwise, you're going to hear a little chatter of a cafe from over in the UK. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the interview.
I'm so curious about you and your background, because this is not your first rodeo.
It isn't. I've had a career of television for 13 years, completely happily forgetting that I was ever the son of Wicker Man. And then I go and do a PhD to sort of tail off my career happily into writing academic books. And the academic world will not let it go. Oh my God, you're the son of Wicker Man. Oh my God, Wicker Man's my favorite film. They go, oh, shut up. Will you just fuck off? And so I got bamboozled back into it. And of course, having somebody send me those papers was really, obviously, the clincher. I couldn't keep on being the denier forever.
I was fascinated watching the movie and finding out how ambivalent you were towards the film at first, because I would have thought, oh, yeah, of course, they're got to be super proud about this.
It's an irony, isn't it, that the filmmaker's son is the one who's least engaged with the film. I think that I do make it clear that ultimately it was a sort of delayed trauma, probably on my part. But I have to say, when I did start, I really didn't hugely like it. I just, partly because it's a very irregular film, and those of us that love our narratives, and also it's a very dated film. There's much about it which you could, if you wanted to, if you stopped having the magic spell cast over you, go, it's quite flat, it's quite wooden, it's quite a sort of, frankly, oddly put together piece. But then if you let the magic swarm all over you, you start going, no, it's a genre buster now. It's a musical, it's a soft porn, it's a police procedural, it's a detective story, and then eventually it's a horror. And of course, for most people, that's already a sort of done deal. As you can imagine, coming to it as I did at 58, and watching it afresh. What the hell is this thing? I'm not a genre creature, really.
Tell me a little bit more about your career and the types of films that you are making.
So I'm a specialist in history films, and I make what is often rather unkindly called historical documentary drama, which is often not very well done because it's neither one thing nor another. But in my feathery hands, it's a wonderful thing. And I've got the awards to prove it. I make very good evocations of the past with quite a lot of star actors who come to me because they know that my stories are better than the crap that gets written by some person in an ivory tower. I've done everything from 1066 to the London riots of 2011. I've done the release of Belsen concentration camp. I've done how Britain got into the First World War in 37 days. I've done 1066 and the Vikings and the Normans invading on the same week. I've done a lot of stuff.
How was that to turn that lens towards yourself and to examine your own life?
Weird as anything, really. Genuinely weird as anything. I've been very happily satisfying my ego by being behind the camera. I really am not that narcissistic that I really need to be in front of the camera. And somebody said to me recently, your dad actually looks like he's a bit unkempt in front of the camera, unlike Anthony Shaffer, who always looks perfectly coiffured. And he was decoding from that Shaffer was more of the narcissist than Dad was, which is quite interesting. I don't think we go there, but anyway. It was weird being in front of the camera. I think one of the best decisions I took was inviting my brother in to share it with me and to be more of the front man. I think that was a really good choice. He's a history of art professor. He has no experience in television presenting. His first take was always absolute nonsense. Gobbledygook, millions of ideas, untrained, unconsidered. And I would just say, tell me what the bloody hell are you going on about? And he'd say, yeah, no, I'm on it now. And the second take would be divine. It'd draw together 3 different ideas into one perfect 30-second sequence. It was rare.
That's amazing. That's a good person to know and to have in front of the camera.
So, yeah.
Where do you even start with a story like this? Do you guys sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to investigate? Or do you just go, this is going to be very organic and we'll figure it out in the edit?
You have to start with a plan of some sort. So the plan in this case was fairly chronological to start with. The papers indicated the prep. There was an awful lot we didn't know about how the film got into prep and how Dad should never have been directing Wicker Man. The production came next, and lots of papers there that told us that nobody liked Dad on the Wicker Man. Then we did some interviews to discover that people really didn't like Dad. Then we had the post-production where we could see that Dad was trying to rescue the film against a British man that didn't care. And then the papers run out. So we knew that thereafter there would be a resurrection. And we knew that we then discovered that Dad and Shaffer had this sort of big battle that went on. I suppose the other shape that we knew from early on was the sort of humorous shape of one day, Justin, you're going to have to forgive. And I think I accepted it. I think I knew that this was a journey where whatever I found out, and let's face it, most of what I found out was at least as bad as I thought it was, if not worse. I still needed to get to a place of forgiveness. What we didn't realize, and the organic part of this, is that we go to a cliff edge to see the sun going down to mimic the final scene. And we literally do meet 4 young Shaman women doing salutations to the sun and saying, breathe and give out your love to those who have gone before. So that was truly a kind of Wicker Man moment that people, even to this day, think is contrived. And it just isn't. That's the real thing. That's the organic part of it.
No, the first time I watched the documentary, I was like, is this real? Did they stage all this? Because it just felt so convenient. That's amazing that it was the real deal.
Oh. We had an editor initially who was quite a tidy, old-fashioned editor and who selected only the shots that were very beautiful. And after a while, we decided that we needed to let that go. We needed a more organic way of telling the story, as if it was 2 children making a scrapbook of their father. And so we got in this 25-year-old PhD who had never edited anything before and followed her instincts. And our instincts were all go raw. The shamans, he had said, weren't good enough to be in there. She said, I don't care. I don't care how wobbly it is. I don't care how bad the sound is. This is real. I want real in here. I want people to feel what we feel. And I have to say, I think if this film does everything, it does have people crying in the aisles.
Just the relationship between the brothers and then with the investigation of the father. You've got, 58, as you say, years of family trauma to deal with, basically.
Yeah. We never intended to make that. We intended to make a making of the Wicker Man. We knew that people would be interested in the making of the Wicker Man. Probably more often than not last year when it was his 50th than this year. But as I say, the papers led us towards a much more personal view, not only of Dad's bankruptcy, as we subsequently discovered, my mother's investment in the film, and therefore my mother's story as being one of the overshadowed females from history. And I have to say, since we followed that storyline as well as we have, we're getting very good emotional responses.
I can't imagine living it, much less documenting it.
It's very sweet of you to say so. I mean, that is a compliment. And it was a very circuitous film to edit. It took about a year to figure out which of the storylines we were following, whether it was Hardy and Schaffer, the lost Lennon and McCartney, or whether it was how creative was the genius that was Robin Hardy. And ultimately, I think we ended up with a bit more of a revelation of this is a bit uncomfortable watching my dad, leading to why don't we raise a glass to my mum who died without knowing that it was a success. Ultimately, I have a second film, which is called Wicker Mania, with so many of the outtakes, like the story of Rich Eklund's bung, and who was it that replaced that, which are really hilarious. They're fun. They're much more sort of the lives and death of Christopher Lee, right? They're much more kind of genre, behind the scenes of a genre film. And I think that will be a real crowd pleaser. This is a different thing. This is a much more intimate portrayal, and you need to be prepared to take a tissue with you.
How was that relationship between you and your brother before you set out on this project? And did this project change that relationship?
He's a very nice man. I'm not a very nice man. I'm the younger brother, but I tend to be quite dictatorial. We're both bits of Dad, I suspect. And again, I was grateful to have him because I thought that his personality, I could see that he was a kinder, more empathetic a human being. And I knew that my anger was too strange and unexplained. And I think it comes across that we're not the same, that I'm a little frustrated when he drifts off. He's a dreamer and I'm not a dreamer. But I think that there's a certain inevitability to it. He had to be the guy. He is the right guy for me to help me understand. And I think that there is a nice moment where you discover why it is that we have to do this together, because he had always missed having a brother he could rock and tumble with.
You were, 8 when the movie was being made?
Yeah, so I was born in 64, this was 72, 10 by the time it blew up my family out.
Yeah, that must have been odd to have this thing that initially is a failure, but then people love as it goes on. When did you start to see people really showing this affection towards the Wicker Man?
Dad reappeared in my life at about 16 and said, it's done well in San Francisco and we've won this great new thing. Yeah, well done, Dad. You've gone and won this award from a bunch of people I don't know and I've never heard of. And they all look like they're wearing antlers to me. Then years go by and I'm in television. Nobody really talks about Wicker Man on television because they're all so busy talking about their own wanky stuff. And by the way, I can see on the edge periphery of my vision, Mark Commode doing an interview. I can see Alex Cox saying, this is good news. I can see the sort of hippies of critical society going, we give this 5 stars. I'm still thinking, yeah, of course they will, because they're all mad. And it's only really in later years that I think that you can feel that this is a big army. I've been to Oslo. I'm going to Finland next week. and going round the world and seeing that all these people are not only devoted, but would literally walk across hot coals for it. And that they want to touch my hem, and it's weird. And I suppose it's quite late in my life to feel this sense of responsibility, but at least it isn't. I'm not starting my career going, how am I going to make something as impressive as that? I just don't feel that pressure.
Where can people see Children of the Wicker Man, and when and where can they see Wickermania?
So Children, we are still looking for distribution. We've only started. We started at Fry Fest in London 10 days ago. Fantastic fest, lovely, fantastic fest. We had a good outing there, and we are off to our next festival next week. I would imagine that it will get picked up by one of the fairly obvious places. And there's talk about doing a 100-screen Q&A walkabout in the States, which I imagine there would be enough people wearing antlers who would quite like to go and see that. Wickermania, I think, will be 2026 and will be presented by Bridge Eklund.
I hope we get to speak again when that happens. This has been a real delight. Thank you so much.
That's all, Mike. Nice to speak to you.